Constraints are geometric relationships that you can use to relate sketch segments, model geometry, and the center point or origin of a sketch. Constraints are key to parametric modeling since they can be used to constrain sketches alongside dimensions but are more flexible to updates. For this example, I'll delete all existing dimensions. And you can see that the status bar says I need 4 dimensions. As I mentioned before, this doesn't mean numeric dimensions, but instead references the degrees of freedom in the sketch, and will decrease as I add constraints. Inventor has several different types of constraints, and I can find them in the Constraint panel on the Sketch tab. If I hover over the horizontal constraint, a tooltip appears, letting me know its use case and that it causes lines, ellipse axes, and point pairs to lie parallel to the x-axis, making them horizontal. Likewise, if I hover over the vertical constraint, the tooltip lets me know that it makes those same types of objects lie parallel to the y-axis. I want this hexagon to have a flat top edge, so a horizontal constraint sounds like it fits my design intent. I'll select the constraint, then select any line on the polygon, and it immediately snaps to horizontal. Horizontal and vertical constraints are some of the most commonly used, so I recommend you get comfortable with using them. Another common constraint type you'll encounter is the coincident constraint, and when I hover over the tooltip, it lets me know that it attaches points to other types of geometry. This constraint has many different applications, one of the most common of which is centering sketches. Remember when you started a sketch and picked a sketch plane? All of the default sketch planes intersect the origin, so it's good practice to draw from or center drawings on the origin. I want to center the sketch on the origin, so I'll select the coincident constraint, then select the center point of the circular sketch. I'll then select the sketch center point on the origin, and as soon as I do, the sketch snaps into place. Notice as well that the status bar changes from 3 dimensions remaining to 1. If for some reason you can't select the origin, or if it was deleted accidentally, all you have to do is click Project Geometry on the Sketch tab, and then expand the Origin menu in the browser to select Center Point. This will create a new center point at the origin of your sketch. I'm satisfied with my results so far, but what if I wanted to get rid of a relationship? To do that, all I'd have to do is delete the constraint. To make constraints visible, you can press the F8 key on the keyboard and then toggle them off again with the F9 key. With the constraints visible, I can click and move the flags to clear some space, or simply select a constraint, like this coincident constraint, and delete it from here. In addition to adding constraints through the tools on the ribbon, you can also add a coincident constraint by simply dragging and dropping geometry onto another reference. I'll undo the coincident restraint I just added, and this time I'll drag the center point of the circle over near the origin. An icon pops up, telling me that it'll add a coincident restraint, and when I release the mouse, it's added. Be sure to pay close attention to these small icons that pop up next to your pointer. If you don't, you may be creating constraints without knowing it, which can be frustrating when the sketch doesn't behave as you're expecting. The automatic constraint here with the current sketch was very simple, but as your sketches get more complex, so do the potential constraints. With that in mind, Inventor lets you add constraints while sketching to speed up this process. For example, I'll start the line tool, place a point, and when I get near horizontal, a horizontal constraint icon appears near the cursor, letting me know that it will be automatically added if I place the line here. A similar vertical constraint appears if I move up, and once I've added a second point, you can see a perpendicular flag appears when applicable. These automatic constraints are extremely helpful when creating initial geometry. You just need to make sure that you want the constraints that are being added, so you don't wonder why you can't move a line as you want later. I'll undo the line placement and leave the circle and polygon's last dimension unconstrained for now. Because while it is possible to fully constrain a sketch with just constraints, I'm not able to set the circle size in this sketch with them. If the idea of using constraints like this is confusing to you, don't worry. It will become much easier as you get more experience. And in the next lesson, I'll use both constraints and dimensions to fully constrain the sketch I have here.